15th and final presentation in our speakers series on the future of the university and the future of learning. It's a pleasure to see everyone here today. We've had a great lineup of presenters from across North America. And today we're capping things off by hearing from Michael Crow, who is the president of Arizona State University and has become synonymous with transformation of the higher education landscape in the United States. For those of you who may not be familiar with Michael Crow's work, he's been the chief architect of Arizona State's dramatic transformation over the course of the last decade or so. And that transformation has been oriented around three major commitments. First, to significantly increasing the research intensity of the university. Second, to ensuring broad socioeconomic inclusiveness and diversity at the university. And third, to maximizing the social impact of the work that's being done at the university. Sometimes these aims are seen as contradictory or in tension, but ASU has created a model that really moves the university forward, transforming it into what is now being called the New American University. ASU has also done some dramatic remaking of their academic structures. The aim here is to focus knowledge making on big challenges that cut across disciplinary boundaries, something that we hear a lot about here at Concordia and we always find difficult to do, although it's a kind of an imaginary ideal. ASU is calling this its intellectual fusion, and it's changed the intellectual landscape there, and I would argue it is beginning to change the landscape of higher education across the United States. President Crow talks about this transformational work as a, quote, deliberate design process focused on creating the kind of university that we need rather than tinkering with inherited structures. We look forward to hearing more about the process that his university has followed and gaining some insights on ASU's transformation and to his ideas in general about the future of the university and the future of learning. So Michael, at this point, I think we've had a technical miscommunication with our own team here. It'll be difficult for you to see the audience, but we do have a mic set up so that people can ask you questions after you've made your presentation. And let me just say again, I know what a crazy schedule you're following these days with all the work going on, and we deeply appreciate your contribution to Concordia's process. Thank you so much. And I think it's over to you.
All right, thank you, Alan, and hello, everybody there. Why don't I do this? Why don't I talk for a little while and then try to open the floor up for questions. First, let me assure you that we share the same objective function. That is, we are a public institution devoted to the success of the public in general. We operate in a highly democratized environment. We, in fact, are one of, if not the only, American university created as a university by direct ballot initiative, that is by direct action in this particular part of the Western United States, in the way that democracy operates out here. That meaning that we have the same mission. Now, in pursuing this mission, we have decided that the what we call the replication model, the isomorphic replication model, is not the best path for us to follow going forward. And the reason that we say that is that, at least in the United States and probably in Canada and much of the mature industrialized world, we're experiencing this simultaneous massive set of social and economic changes. And these changes are that so many opportunities for employment have been reduced by the introduction of technology and the change in the social structure of the workforce over the last 3 or 4 decades, that we're seeing significant, at least in the US, social disruption, employment disruption, reductions in class mobility, reductions in a range of positive social and health and economic outcomes. Combining that with wider income disparities that are occurring between people, all kinds of things that, if they are left to move forward without some changes, have negative social and economic consequences in the long run. That being said, and operating under a design approach to the world, the notion that we operate under is then, if we are a part of this, of the social infrastructure that's facilitating movement into the future. And as we move into the future, we're seeing inadequate educational outcomes. We're seeing inadequate kindergarten through 12th grade outcomes. We're seeing all of these disruptions that we're talking about. We are a part of all of that, meaning we are a contributor to that. And it may not be a conscious contribution, but nonetheless, what it means is that in some ways, the overall design has run its course. And so from our perspective, we know that to be the case because of huge disparities in educational attainment outcomes in the US. If you're from the bottom quartile of family incomes in the US, you have a 9% chance of ever graduating from college. If you're from the upper quartile of family incomes, you have an 80% chance of graduating from college, even if you're from the bottom quartile of academic ability. So that tells you that there's an inherent structural flaw, both in the institutions themselves and in the overall socioeconomic and socio-political construct in which we operate. So having said that, we're basically operating under the premise that models of exclusion and elitism are counterproductive to educational attainment at higher education levels above public schools, and that they have in many ways, and I don't want to overstate this, but nonetheless I think this, they have contaminated the entire lot of institutions that are out there. At least in the United States, the public universities have aspirational, we even use this phrase, aspirational peers that they want to emulate. So that means you're going to try to emulate either the University of California at Berkeley or the University of Michigan. And if you're at a private university, like I was one of the provosts and a faculty member at Columbia University for many years before I came here, our goal in life was to emulate Harvard or Princeton, always begrudgingly. In fact, the New York Times a few months ago ran a front page article that Stanford now must be a better institution than Harvard because they admitted for the first time only 5% or less of the students that applied, meaning scarcity and exclusion are the objective of the institution, from which status is granted to the institution, from which then resources are accumulated by the institution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that model, if you run it out in your mind, that model is unbelievably destructive. Some of you might have seen the cover of The Economist a few weeks ago, which had the title on the cover was "The New American Aristocracy," and it showed a series of showed a family wearing wealthy family clothing from the late 18th century. But on the clothing was a Yale Y and a Stanford hat and a bunch of other things, basically saying that through exclusionary practices of elite private universities, status was being granted to individuals that became basically a new mechanism for the identification of class and class structure. Now, I don't want to belabor this too much, other than to suggest that, at least in the United States, perhaps in Canada, I don't know, some public universities have decided to do this also. So, for instance, the University of Michigan and the University of California at Berkeley, neither of them have their historic admission standards that they once had. And so in 1960, you could still be admitted to the University of California at Berkeley with having taken 15 particular courses, having earned at least a B in those courses, and having at least a 3.0 on your grade point. You could still be admitted to what was already a world-class research university. Now the average GPA for admission to the University of California at Berkeley is 3.9. They only admit the upper 4% of the high school class, and I don't think anyone's ever been admitted there recently that has more than 2 Bs on their entire high school transcript. That means then that those institutions are involved in a sense, an approach to or a method associated with exclusion. So we say to ourselves, at least in the United States then, that here's what began to happen. Research universities began becoming more and more exclusive, admitting only higher and higher high school academic performance students, and then a type or a class of university that some people refer to as access-oriented public universities began to emerge, some of which were even banned from doing research, all of which then were left into a category where somehow they were considered I think inappropriately, lesser institutions, all of which was leading to declining performance in those institutions in terms of graduation outcomes and retention and so forth, as well as a complete social hierarchy beginning to evolve. So we basically said, why would we enter into that completely anti-democratic way of evolving a major research university? So basically, here's what we have done. We have articulated a modern version of an historic vision. The historic vision was egalitarian admission standards to a high-intensity, high-quality, faculty-led research university at as reasonable or low a cost as possible, with an unbelievable commitment to the community in terms of having impact on the community. So I've been in this job here for 13 years, and we started out with a vision, and the vision then evolved into a charter. And the charter now has 3 core elements, and you can find all of this on our website. The charter now says that we will build our institution around inclusion versus exclusion, and we will focus on the success of our students as our single most significant measure of everything that we do. Inclusion versus exclusion and the success of the students. That second, as a part of our charter, we will carry out research to every level that we possibly can, but that we will measure the success of our research activity based on the impact that we have on the public themselves, not just the academic outcomes of the research that we carry out. And the third element of our charter is focused on what we call taking responsibility. And this might sound strange for an American research university, but we believe that we actually have responsibility for the outcome of our community, the social outcome, the cultural outcome, the health and well-being of our community, the economic outcome, and so forth. We don't have sole responsibility, but if things aren't working well in the K through 12 sector, or if the economy is sputtering along, what is our role and our responsibility within that? And so we call all of that our charter. To implement the charter, we articulated 8 design aspirations, with the principal objective being to return design and intellectual authority to the faculty, basically. And what I mean by that is, and I don't know enough about your institution to know whether or not you fall into this, but of the universities that I've been a part of, they are some of the most unbelievably bureaucratic organizations. And I don't mean the administrative side of the institution. That certainly is the case. I mean the academic side of the institution. Strict social constructs, replicant departments that are operated as almost like on a dronal basis. They're just, well, we have a political science department and there's 900 other political science departments, therefore we have to operate a political science department that looks and feels like other political science departments, as opposed to going to the political scientists or to others that are working in the space related to political science and saying to them, well, how would you design yourself if you weren't constrained by someone else's inherited structure? How would you intellectually evolve the institution? And so we outlined a series of design aspirations. I won't walk through all of them. You can find them at asu.edu, or just put in New American University and you can find them on the web. These design aspirations include leveraging our place where we are located is absolutely essential. Universities look and smell and feel too much alike. Why are they so much alike when they exist in so many different locations? We live in essentially northern Latin America, in the southwestern portion of the United States. We live inside as a part of an unbelievably complex ecosystem, in an unbelievably complex human natural environment interface location. If our university, we live in a place where there are 21 Native American tribes here in Arizona. We have very diverse population, a very complex and not yet successful relationship with Mexico. You know, all these things going on at the same time, and if the university isn't reflective of all of that, isn't engaged with the diversity of the community as we find it in this location, then we are not fulfilling our obligations. And so I won't walk through all of the 8 design aspirations, but another one is that the university will value entrepreneurship And I don't mean entrepreneurship as in business, I mean entrepreneurship as in the production of new ideas for social enterprises, new ideas for public enterprises, new ideas for business enterprises or technological configurations, and we'll find ways to stimulate and advance those artistic enterprises, film companies, film activities, museums, whatever, that we will be highly entrepreneurial in how we advance. A third of the 8 design aspirations is one that Alan just mentioned, which is intellectual fusion. And that is the notion that we had as a design aspiration that our faculty would construct better or more unique or both configurations of our academic identity, with the hope that we could do a better job with our students, work on problems that maybe, or on challenges, or on academic scholarship opportunities that others weren't able to work on. So we've built about 15 of those, all very complicated, all somewhat disruptive, all somewhat argumentative, but nonetheless faculty led. We have, with a couple of exceptions, I might say. We have a new school of Earth and space exploration, a new school of human evolution and social change, a school of social transformation, a school of sustainability, a school of family and social dynamics, a fantastic school of life sciences which integrates philosophers, scientists, policy analysts, and a range of others. And so that's what the intellectual fusion component of our design aspirations means. And then what we've been working toward is trying to find a way to make all of this work in a very unstable funding environment, in an environment where we have seen a reversal of public support versus individual investment in the institution due to the Great Recession here and other not yet resolved issues relative to the public funding of universities. Our operating budget this year coming up, beginning July 1st, will be about $2.2 billion and about let's say about 12% of that comes from public appropriations, and the rest comes from other sources. And so that's been and that's down from 90% of our budget that was funded by the government in 1998, just to give you some sense of that. And that was a budget that was about a fourth as large. And so just to give you that sense. So in moving forward, there have been several areas that we've really focused on to empower transformation of this university into having a unique trajectory and a unique identity. So one of those has been to change the culture of the institution from being faculty-centric to being student-centric. And this sounds like a trivial thing. It's not. Most universities' cultures are faculty-centric. Most of the discussions are about the faculty and their interactions with each other. Most of the dynamics are about those things, as opposed to an obsession, which we now have, on our students' success. And we've tried to now take this focus, and we've seen tremendous improvements in our student success, and I'll mention those in just a second. A second thing beyond faculty-centric culture is the change in our what I call our speed of interaction. So we changed the regular semester into 2 academic modules. We now have 6 academic modules. We allow the faculty to teach. They can fulfill their teaching requirements either in face-to-face classes, in online classes. They could fulfill their teaching requirements in a 7.5-week academic module. They could have a year-long online course. They could have all kinds of ways that these things can be done. And this changing in speed of the main academic clock, and the changing in speed in how we make decisions. If it takes longer than a semester to make a decision, it's probably not worth making because it's not really that important. And so we've changed speed, and that's helped us. We've also decided to go out and find every tool that human beings have ever made that can enhance learning or enhance advising or help students to group together or help students to learn more deeply, more quickly, more individually, more personally. And we've aggregated those. We have 155 partnerships right now with tool makers around the world that we've integrated into our curriculum. And then I think the other thing that we've done is that we work to empower the faculty and the staff to work in ways in which they spend their time focusing on how to innovate. Now, innovation is a disruptive process. It creates all kinds of dynamic tension. For the most part, that dynamic tension has been positive. For the most part, the outcomes of that dynamic tension has been positive. A little bit about the numbers. When I took office in 2002, and then graduating in 2003, we graduated about 8,900 students. This year, we will graduate about 20,000 students. In 2003, we did about $100 million of funded research without a medical school. This year, we will do $450 million of funded research without a medical school. At least in the US, that's a very large number. In fact, that's more non-medical research than Columbia, where I was the chief research officer, Harvard, Stanford, USC, any of the very large American research universities, because most of their research is related to a medical school, and much of their medical research is related to clinical trials. We don't have either of those, and so our scientific and technological areas of research, including social sciences, humanities, arts, business, education, public policy, criminology, chemistry, engineering, all of these areas have really taken off. So twice the number of graduates, 4 times the level of research, but also our student body for the first time in our history is completely representative of the entire socioeconomic diversity of our region. So we have about 18% poverty index here in Arizona. About 20% of our students come from families below that index. They have no money at all to pay for anything. Tuition, room and board, books, nothing. And so that for us, just to put that into perspective, that's approaching 15,000 undergraduates from those family incomes. And so we've also restructured the institution to be able to manage at scale the kind of resource needs that we have to help students to have no financial barriers to entry. A little bit about performance. We have doubled our 4-year graduation rate. Our retention rate, so for students that admit, or for universities that admit only A-level high school students, they have retention rates north of 90%. We admit A and B level students. We have the same admission standards as UC Berkeley had in 1960, and we adamantly maintain those and will maintain those. Our retention rate is approaching 90%. We're at 87% now as we move forward, and that's what we call first-time, full-time freshman retention. So just to give some sense of scale, we this year we'll get about 11,400 first-time, full-time freshmen and about 11,000 community college transfer students for 22,000 new undergraduates that are coming in at one time, and they are from about 45% of those incoming students are students of color, that is from ethnic and racial minorities in the United States. And so that's all new for us. That number used to be 5% students of color, and only 3% of our students in 1990 came from the median income or below. So we've altered access to the institution. We've altered the research performance of the institution. We've empowered the faculty to be designers and masters of their own fate. And I think that this has helped us to create this new kind of institution. Now having said that, all of this is complicated. All of this is imperfect. Not everything that we've tried works. Not everything that we work on is successful. But what I can say is most works. Most is successful. And overall, the institution is infinitely more successful than it was 10 or 12 years ago. So, Alan, why don't I sort of use that as the setup and see if folks there want to ask some questions. And if people, when they ask a question, if they could say their name and their department and so forth, that would be helpful to me.
You and you can see them. So can people line up here who'd like to ask questions, and don't be shy. I'll ask the first question just to get us going, but then I hope people will have things to ask Michael about. So my question is really about how your ideas are being received in the U.S. by other university leaders. Historically, in American higher education, the changes, the profound changes to the system were initiated typically by Harvard. So I'm thinking of the Harvard Red Book as an example. What kind of responses are you getting to your ideas from, particularly I'm interested in the leaders of the elite institutions, because you're behaving like a heretic, if I can say so. I find your ideas incredibly compelling and very persuasive. But you're really messing up a system that's been tried and true, and there's a whole kind of hierarchical structure that you're challenging. So what kind of reactions are you getting? And while you're answering that, can I get my colleagues to come down here and get their questions ready? So as soon as you're done, we'll go to the next question. Michael, over to you.
So it just so happens that a colleague of mine and I published a book last month called "Designing the New American University." So it's been out there, and there's several thousand copies out there, and there's book reviews being written about it. And it doesn't talk so much about ASU. It talks more about the logic and the rhetoric and the ideas and the philosophies behind this kind of new American research university. A premise of the book is not that this is a model intended to destroy the previous models. So it turns out that all of the previous models of higher education, at least in the US, still exist and are still thriving. There's been 4 waves of change: the colonial colleges, the public colleges, the land-grant colleges and universities, the research universities that emerged. Some of the earlier versions became those, and then all of those forms still exist. So the colonial colleges are basically America's versions of Greek Academy, Bowdoin College, Williams College, Amherst College, Colorado College, Oberlin College. There's hundreds of these around the country, and they're still moving and still going strong, particularly those that are wealthier. I won't walk through all the groups. So the premise is not that the model that we're proposing is meant to be a replacement model. It's meant to be an augmentation model. It's meant to be, in a sense, in the US. So the reason that the land-grant colleges were created and empowered by a federal act during the American Civil War was that there was the general belief that the 2 previous models were too class-based, particularly for upper class and men. And so the land-grant colleges were funded by land grants from the federal government to the individual states to create colleges and universities that focused on the sons and daughters of farmers and mechanics. Those are the exact words: sons and daughters of farmers and mechanics. Most of us sitting in the room here can't imagine a world in which middle class and working class students wouldn't be able to go to college, but that was the case. Where women couldn't go to college, and that was also the case, and was the case at some colleges for a long time. So the model that we're proposing is not a new model meant to replace the others. It's a new model meant to augment the others. Now, reactions are, as you would imagine, we live in a culture, the academic culture, which is highly conservative in terms of change. But there was an article that appeared yesterday, a review of the book by Nick Dirks, who's the sitting chancellor of the University of California at Berkeley, and this appeared in the Chronicle of Higher Education. I would say that Nick basically said, yeah, this is probably a good idea, something that we need to take a look at, and probably improves on the notion of growing public universities that are not research oriented, and says, no, we need to have some public research universities that are scaled and scalable and adaptive and so forth. And then he goes on to talk about the things that Berkeley's going to do and that Berkeley's working on and so forth and so on. So I think all in all, he sort of got it. Now, overall, I think there's a lot of skepticism about the model because it's basically easier for people to basically say, well, we need to have if we had as many resources as the University of British Columbia, or if we had as many resources as the University of Toronto or the University of Michigan or the University of Virginia, then we could do what they do. I would argue that why would you want to be them because they're already them? Why not be something different than them with an identity that goes well beyond them, accomplishing things that they can't accomplish? And so, in general, the reaction to that by some is positive and by some is negative.
Some of us actually read the review in the Chronicle yesterday. We circulated it around. I thought it was very favorable, and I guess I'm a graduate of UVA. It's been a tough year at UVA. I'm really interested in the model you're developing because I do think there's an enormous hunger and thirst for that kind of access, coupled with high quality research and with a social impact. I think it's fantastic. Our first question.
Those are the three things that we're trying to do. So
yeah, that's fantastic. Our first questioner is the Vice President of Research, Graham Carr.
Hello, Michael. I'm Graham. So, Mike, just to put things in perspective, we're also a university without a medical school. We're doing currently about 1/10 of the amount of externally funded research that you are. And I'm just curious how you managed to move the dial so quickly on the research productivity. To what do you attribute that success? Was it the kind of reorganization of researchers in different units? Was it the ability to create more flexible teaching schedules for faculty members so that they could change their research program accordingly? And I'm also very interested about how you managed to excel in driving those research dollars while at the same time making the university more accessible to a student population that many colleagues, I would suggest, wouldn't necessarily see as the secret to increasing research productivity. There's always a pressure around graduate education to bring in the absolute top graded students, or is it in fact something about the richness of the diversity of the student population at ASU that's making a difference in terms of output?
Yeah, really fantastic question, and all these things are correlated. So I would say that the single most important things that we did relative to research productivity enhancement was we looked out at the terrain, and what we saw was basically lots of pardon the analogy, but I don't have a better one, lots of dogs chasing the same bone. And the dogs are all lined up with the older, stronger, dogs of the established research universities, almost always getting to the bone first, and the upstarts or the wannabes or the people, basically trying to figure out how to get a few scraps from those dog bone hunting processes. So we're like, I don't think we're going to be involved in that since we are 14 laps behind in the race. We have a fantastic faculty, as I'm sure you do also, but they're not able to be as creatively innovative as they could be because they're all chasing the same thing. So we decided to make investments in ways of organizing the faculty that other people weren't organizing. So, for instance, we have received more than $10 million of funding for a project area linking our religious studies faculty with our history faculty, with our philosophy faculty, with some other economics and social science faculty around the idea of conflict and religion around the great Abrahamic religions. And so this was from a group of people, none of whom had ever been funded, ever, by anybody. And they were very skeptical that they ever could be funded. And I said, just get your ideas out there. People are craving, your intellects, the way you view things, the way you work together. If you could just come together, and they did, and they were funded. And so we started doing this in several areas and several places where just the bringing together of the faculty around new ways of thinking. So we started building interdisciplinary teams and teams of faculty members around different project areas. And then as university initiatives, we said, we will never fund anything that we can find in one search on the web more than 10 other groups already doing at a university level. So we didn't build a biotechnology center because there's already 1,000 of those. Who cares? And so we built a whole new idea around the idea of designing from nature, bio-inspired architecture. And so the notion wasn't biotechnology for the sake of biotechnology. It was to use bio-inspired architecture to solve a whole range of problems. And then we built a sustainability institute, built around 40 of our departments and 310 of our faculty members. You can find that. It's called the Global Institute of Sustainability, and see who all those faculty are. Those faculty, when we started it, had about $5 million in funding, those 300 faculty. Now they have about $80 million of funding per year. And so what we've seen is team formation to this notion of the undergraduates. So we have, I don't remember, I guess we probably have, in fact, I know we do, we have 60,000 1,000 face-to-face undergraduates. They are one of our most outstanding research assets. It's almost beyond belief what they can do and how they can contribute to what we're doing. And it is because of their diversity. It is because of the diversity of our students and the diversity of our faculty that we've been winning heavily in social science grants and education grants and public policy grants and student engineering problem solving grants and so forth. So it's a combination of all these things working in our favor and us no longer chasing the same bone. Now, if an individual faculty member wants to chase the same bone, that's fine. We empower that person, we help that person. I'll tell you the other thing that we did is we started making internal investments, and then we built proposal preparation teams to help our faculty. So we want our faculty to focus on teaching and scholarship, teaching and scholarship. So we swarmed around them with every asset that we can think of to help them to be able to team together. We built teaming spaces, we built community spaces, we built what we call proposal machines made up of staff that are experts at writing and so forth and so on. And we don't have time in this discussion to go through everything, but we basically decided that the last thing that we could ever do is just basically try to play this game against the others by hoping we could recruit some great faculty members from some other place by paying them an extraordinary salary and then using them to basically bring their grants. Now, of course, that happens, and that has happened here, but that's not how we've been able to move these numbers forward. We've been able to move these numbers forward by basically taking a unique approach built around the strengths of our faculty and the ability of our faculty and the energy of our faculty and the strength, ability, and energy of our students at scale, at diversity. All those things have worked in our favor.
Yes, hello. Thank you for the talk. It was wonderful. I'm Lynn Hughes from the Faculty of Fine Arts, and I just wanted you to talk a little bit more, if you would, about how you managed to get such a dramatically more representative student body. So you talked a bit about including the Bs, but if you could maybe elaborate on other strategies.
So that's a good question, Lynn, because it doesn't happen even if you throw your doors open, as we have, to an egalitarian admission standard. So our admission standards are, you have to take 16 particular courses in high school, score at least a B in those courses, and have at least a B average in your high school performance. Not every kid can obviously do that, but every kid that does that was admittable to Berkeley in 1960, and they're still admittable to ASU 55 years later in 2015. But having said that, even with that, without a conscious, deliberate act of eliminating the financial barrier for the families with below median level incomes, without a deliberate act of going to those high schools and overcoming cultural barriers for even applying, cultural barriers for applying and then not coming, without that as a conscious thing, a conscious way of working, you can't build the diversity. So Lynn, in summation, the reason that we have been able to attain these objectives is because it is an objective. We talk about it with the faculty, we talk about it with the chairs and the school directors and the deans. We have everybody focused on making certain that we're finding that talent at that level of capability that we believe is necessary to do research university level work. We're finding that talent, and we break down every single barrier that we can to get that talent, to bring that talent to the university. I'm talking about the student now, and have them move forward. That means we have counselors in the high schools. We have probably 50 or 60 programs that we operate in the field. Hispanic mother-daughter program where we're working with the mothers to help the mothers to not be a barrier to the daughter coming to college, because the mother in some families will say, well, I really need you at the family. And so the child, 17 or 18 years old, then won't leave the family to go to the university, even with the ultimate outcome being to benefit the family. So we decided we had to focus on the mothers. And this has been a very successful program for us. And then I won't walk through all the things that we're doing, but we just got some private philanthropy to build a tool, an online game that a student can use on a smartphone that asks them 60 questions where they just pick between two pictures. The two pictures, it's basically a learning psychology profile, determines what the kid is potentially interested in, talks about the possible careers that kind of interest might manifest itself through, then says what majors at the university help you to maybe go in that direction, then goes back to you in your high school, because we put in data relative to the high school, and says what you need to do in your high school to be prepared to go to the university. So imagine that we're doing those kinds of things in the field, outreach, engaged, and then we've also eliminated the financial barriers to entry. And then when the student comes, we swarm the students with every success technique possible, heavily augmented now by technology, unbelievably augmented by technology that it has taken, for instance, our students not on track to degrees and gotten them on track to degrees, etc. And so from our perspective, it has been a conscious, collective effort of the faculty and the staff to make certain that our student body is as diverse as it is.
Hi, this is Gabby. I'm from Health Services. I know in the literature that Arizona State has moved forward very significantly from its party reputation and culture. And I've heard some clues in what you've been speaking today of some strategies, perhaps to focus on student success and retention. But I would love to hear some more of your experience and insights into that.
Yes, and so what we've made is we've set retention goals for every unit. So every college has retention goals. Every dean is held accountable for retention attainment. And as well as for quality assessments. So we're doing learning outcome assessments of our students along the way. We're now using national survey organizations to poll our graduates to see how they're doing. Not just their jobs, that's just a tiny part of what going to college is all about, but their lives, their health, their well-being, their happiness. We just went through this, and Alan, I can send you all of these things if folks there are interested in it. And so what we did is we really focused on this notion of how our students succeed as the single most important aspect of the institution. The research activities that we are involved in help our students to be more robustly educated. They help our faculty to be better master teachers. If they're creative faculty in the art school or the music school, or if they're research, scholarly oriented faculty in social science or in engineering or in physical sciences or what have you, we ask them to devote their energy to the success of our students. And so I don't know, Gabby, how this has all worked for us, other than this has become our raison d'etre. I mean, this is our reason for existence. Our reason for existence is the success of our students, not the success of ourselves. Now that might sound like a cliche, but I can guarantee you that it's not. All of our metrics, all of our units of analysis are about who did we retain and who did we not retain. So we've set a new objective that we're far from attaining, but we intend to attain it, and that is we will know our objective is that an incoming student's family income or ethnicity will no longer be a variable capable of helping to predict their success. So right now, it still is the case that a person's incoming family income gives us some indicator of how successful they might be. We want to move the institution into a way where you enter the institution and all chances of success are equal. Now that's idealized, obviously, but it gives you a sense of our logic and how we're thinking. And that means then everything from student life to student health to student counseling to rec centers, all of which are related to retention, to faculty engagement, academic counseling. We built a thing called e-advisor, which is a way to augment our academic counseling. It's a tremendous tool for our students to use and to work on. And so those have been the ways that we've been able to do this.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Brad Nelson. I'm a Spanish professor, and I get to ask the second to last question. Okay. What I'm wondering about are what you would consider some of your more successful stories of community engagement, and what were some of the challenges that you faced and how you overcame them.
So in community engagement, we outlined one of our design aspirations is what we call social embeddedness. And social embeddedness means that this is going to be a frontline university. We're not going to be back behind the ivory tower, back behind the walls, behind the gates, close the gates when things get rough, metaphorically. We're going to be a frontline university. And so for us, this has meant, for instance, 2 charter schools that we operate with 2,500 students. One is in a high poverty neighborhood with 80% of the kids from high poverty families. Our objective, this is in a school district where only about 1% of the kids go on to college and only about 50% of the kids graduate from high school. And we'll graduate our first class here next month in May. And we have a 97% graduation rate, and 75% of those that are graduating are going on to post-secondary education, and 40% of the students have achieved at the highest honors that they're admittable to our honors college here at the university. And these are just generic neighborhood families. And so that's an example of community engagement. We have about 1,100 community engagement activities under our social embeddedness activities. One of those is we now are running in about 10 public libraries in Phoenix, which is a city of 1.5 million people. The county here has 4.1 million people, and the city of Phoenix is slightly larger than Philadelphia. But in the libraries in Phoenix, we're running basically what we call Alexandria centers. These are centers where any kid, any family can come in with their idea, and then a team of students and others will work with them on an entrepreneurial basis to take their idea. The idea might be, how to improve their neighborhood. The idea might be how to start a business. The idea might be how to improve the performance of their high school. And so we've built a bunch of these. I won't go through the whole list. We have hundreds of these kinds of programs that we are engaged in terms of successful community engagement. Now, we're nowhere near where we would like to be. Let me say, we hold ourselves to a high aspirational goal. We've got low college attainment rates in Arizona. We've got underperforming communities. We've got health outcomes. So we created new colleges. So we created a new College of Health Solutions, which is built not so much on healthcare or healthcare delivery, but built on the notion of community-based solutions to keep people out of healthcare situations. We altered in a sense, we've taken all of our schools and made them two-way schools rather than one-way schools. They face to the outside. We're building a new campus for our law school in downtown Phoenix where all the moot classrooms and so forth are all outward facing. There's public event spaces. The law library will be open to the public, et cetera, et cetera. I won't walk through each of these projects other than to say it's basically the turning of the university inside out and making it a part of our mission, a part of our tenure process, a part of our curriculum, all of those things. And so this notion of community engagement is a core element of the university's mission.
Hi, Michael. I'm Benoit Bacco. I'm the provost. I'm told I get the last question.
The provosts always get the last question.
So let's see. I'm interested in how you got buy-in. Let's call it buy-in for your model for some of your most transformative ideas. In particular, buy-in from faculty and from faculty unions, if that applies, and how you used perhaps some of your early successes to build pride. I'm interested in pride building at Arizona State.
So I think that actually so there was a lot of resistance at the beginning, resistance from different quarters. So one, why should we go down this path that this crazy guy who the board just appointed as president of the university is talking about? Why would we do this? It's kind of risky. Two, if we do this and this person that's come here as our leader is a chump like lots of other leaders and just jumps from school to school to school to school, well, he'll get these ideas out and get a few of them going. They won't be very successful, and then he'll leave us in the lurch. Well, 13 years later, I'm still here. So that was a worry at the beginning. Then there were just the faculty who were concerned about, listen, we plot our own course. The rest of you people can go to hell. And that's actually a belief that I understand, which is that the last thing that I would ever want to do is reduce the independent degrees of freedom of an individual faculty member. And so it was actually, as you say, through early wins, small and large, where we were able to get some things going, win some outside funding, gain some support, empower some faculty members that felt like they wanted to do something new, really turn the design process over to them. So after 2 years of, I think, some arguing and debating and skepticism and so forth, we got some early wins, And then I think more and more faculty bought in. There were always a few faculty members, I'll use an example, who didn't want to buy into anything because they were just against it. When we did the change in life sciences, we had 3 marginal biology departments. I think they were molecular biology, plant biology, and biology. And they had evolved at different times in the institution's history. None of them were particularly successful. And so we said to them, we're really tired of having these less than successful biology programs. We're going to have you guys go away and design as from a clean slate. If you could design how biology should be at ASU going forward, what would you design? So they took a semester, they came back, they had a brilliant design. It was really quite inspiring. And they called for the establishment of a school of life sciences that we now have. They called for, as I said earlier, more faculty, philosophers, policy analysts, social scientists in with the biologists. They called for self-assembly of the groups and so forth. That is, no faculty departments, just the ability of the faculty to self-assemble and self-design on their own. They bring, at the time, the 110 faculty members together, and 100 were for this and 10 were against it. And 5 of the 10 that were against it were just the most cantankerous, negative, in some ways, the way that they spoke so disrespectfully. Typically, that would have, in many academic institutions, that would have ended the process. In this particular case, it didn't end the process. We thought that we had consensus, unanimous consensus being not possible. We had consensus. We went with the consensus design. 5 of the 10 faculty that opposed it stayed with the unit and later prospered. 5 decided to retire or move on and do other things. That was also fine. And so at the moment, that unit now has 5 times the amount of research that it had, 3,000 undergraduate majors, the majority of which are women. It's a fantastic success story, and I'm just glad that we didn't cave into the 10 faculty members, all of which had strong voices, who were prepared to sink the entire project. And so that project being successful, that one now is more than 10 years old, helped to facilitate our emergence of our other transdisciplinary schools.
Michael, we've had an hour of your time, which has been expensive for you, but it's been invaluable to us. I just want to say, any last words you'd like to leave us with, and then we'll sign off. We're very grateful for your work.
Just that. Oh, by the way, we don't have faculty unions, so just to add that. But we do have strong faculty academic governance and academic senate and so forth, and they've been supportive, not unanimously supportive, but supportive by voting through their role in all of the things that I've been talking about. That is, we haven't done anything that they haven't participated in and been a party to and helped to shape. So my last words, I think, Alan, would be just, we're on the same mission. We're trying to make the world a better place. I'm always inspired to have an opportunity to talk to another school and that wants to do transformative things with our social and cultural and economic outcomes. And so if I can ever be helpful, or if we at ASU can ever be helpful, just let me know.
So, as you know, a team of us are going to come down and see you. We're still working on the dates for that, but I've been watching your work for a number of years. It feels like I've talked to like a long lost cousin. So fantastic. Thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it.